I see the end result in the emergency room every day of what doing nothing results in. If you take a passive role in your health, it's entirely predictable where you're going to end up. I see it every single day. You're going to be coming in.
I know.
Heart attack, stroke, diabetes. I mean, the population that I see in the emergency department, it's hard to even relate to people who don't work in the healthcare system, like just how sick these people are. I guess one of the big messages I have is that, the healthcare system in the United States, and really, I talk to guys all over the world in this practice, it's not headed to a good place. And you don't want to be sucked into it, because once you're in, it's sort of like the proverbial belly of the beast. So, the only way to stay out of the medical system is to be as healthy as you possibly can. Not just when you're young, you have to start when you're young, but, in your 50s and 60s and 70s, that's when the wheels come off for a lot of people, and they end up in my world, in the emergency room. And by that point, a lot of times it's too late. So I wanted to, give guys information that they can use to make good healthcare decisions, because, just like anything in life, like you can't make good decisions if you don't have good information. And ultimately, one of the take home messages of my channel is that, like, you're responsible for your own healthcare. The days of like relying on your doctor to keep you healthy are over. Your doctor probably doesn't know. We do live in a sick care system, right? So, if you're sort of in that, if you're normal, whatever that may be today, they don't really know what to do with you. If you're normal and say you want to be super healthy, if you go to your regular internist, family medicine doctor, urologist, they don't know what to do. They only know what to do with you once you're sick.
Medicine. Yeah, preventative medicine barely exists in the Western world, where you go to a hospital, and you ask them, and you say, hey, I want to do some blood work, I want to do some organ imaging, can you please check this little nodule on my skin? They just turn you away because you don't have any symptoms. So this is a problem for a lot of people problem for a lot of people who like to stay on top of their health, because there's not a direct issue going on right now, but they want to be ahead of it and prevent anything from ever happening. This is why I like countries like Thailand or Dubai or some other places in the world where you can just walk into a private hospital and say, listen, I got a potential problem XYZ. Can we take it off? And if it costs me like $2,000 out of pocket and we don't find anything, great. I paid $2,000 for ease of mind. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good news.
Yeah. It won't happen here. I mean, I can tell you all kinds of stories about that. I actually went I get my care at the VA. So I asked the VA, I wanted to get a CT angiogram, because I have a terrible, if you watch some of my videos, my family history for heart disease is terrible. I have high lipoprotein A, which we can talk about. And I asked my intern, I knew what they would say, but I thought I would just ask, oh, no, you can't, we don't do CTAs unless you've already had a heart attack or you're actively having chest pain. Okay, all right. So
basically you got to wait until you're close to death.
Yeah, exactly. So ultimately it does come down to, to making, you have to just take it into your own hands. And, if you're not a physician, if you're not medically trained, or you don't, you haven't taken the time, it takes many years to learn this stuff, regardless of whether you're a physician or not. How do you make those decisions? Like, you can be led down the wrong path by someone who maybe doesn't have the best of intentions or is trying to sell you something. So anyway, my goal ultimately with the channel is just to give people good information that they can make good decisions with. And I see the end result in the emergency room every day of what doing nothing results in. It's if you take a passive role in your health, I mean, it's entirely predictable where you're going to end up. I see it every single day. You're going to be coming in.
I know.
Heart attack, stroke, diabetes. I mean, the population that I see in the emergency department, it's hard to even relate to people who don't work in the healthcare system, like just how sick these people are. And they're acutely sick, but really they're chronically sick. So
It's a lot of
everybody's
lifestyle sickness, right? The diabetes
yeah.
and the
Oh
smoking and
yeah.
the drinking and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I just spent an entire month in the United States, and I traveled all over, right? I went to Detroit, I went to Columbus, Chicago, LA, Las Vegas, Florida. Man, I went all over the place, Sacramento.
Yeah.
And so I got a good slice of America this time. And I
Yeah.
came to the conclusion that general Americans are not very healthy.
Oh my God. No,
It's
it's a
pretty
disaster.
alarming, honestly,
I'm
as a
telling you, it is
foreigner.
a
Yeah,
disaster. Yeah.
yeah.
Did you go to Disneyland or Disney World?
Disney World. Disney World was the worst. That's
Yeah,
literally like
that's what
Wall
I'm
E.
saying. Yeah.
You have people in all kinds of shapes and sizes riding scooters,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
people with special needs, whether those are faked or real. I mean, and
Right.
the diabetes level of Disney World is just alarming. Plus, Disney
Unbelievable.
caters to it because everything is sugar.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Everything is
Giant
sugar over there.
pretzels,
So
enormous pretzels and drinks, and everything's
yeah,
supersized, right? Everything, including the
yeah,
people.
exactly. Yeah, full with sugar. So it's alarming to see,
Mhm.
and so especially living in Asia for such a long time, where most people are somewhat in shape. Of course,
Right.
diabetes and lifestyle diseases are rising over here, but
It's getting
it's
worse.
generally speaking, people at least appear to be healthier
Right.
on the outside. But then again,
Yeah.
of course, if you send them for blood work and organ imaging, it's probably the same stuff.
It
I
is.
just think that general population is really on the decline,
It's so
especially
bad.
the Western world.
It's so
And
bad.
of course, you see this. Yeah, you see this quite often in your practice, and I'm only exposed to it when I go out to a public place.
Mhm.
But what I see in the fitness industry is a lot of steroid abuse, obviously,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
performance enhancing drug
Sure. That's the
mismanagement.
other part. Yeah.
So, do you see that in your practice, like where you get some guys that are into steroids or that kind of stuff, and then they get coronary artery disease or other kinds of cardiovascular issues
Not
when
really.
they come
So
in?
not in my emergency medicine practice. This, the population that I see tons of coronary artery disease. I mean, I get heart attacks every single day, strokes, all that sort
Wow.
of stuff. But it's from the usual things you would expect, right? It's decades of uncontrolled high blood pressure, decades of hyperglycemia, decades of lipids through the roof, and terrible diet and obesity, and actually like tons of methamphetamines. Like methamphetamines is a huge issue just
Oh,
everywhere in the United States, and so we're
wow.
like, it's not unusual to have like 3 generations of a family at the hospital. They're all hooked on methamphetamines, and of course fentanyl is now the new thing
Right.
as well.
So,
So
are we talking about methamphetamines that are prescribed in the form of
no,
Adderall, Vyvanse,
no.
Dexedrine, or this is the street amphetamines? Yeah.
This is the stuff coming up from in where I am, and I think most of the states now. It's all coming up from Mexican labs. So there are still mom and pop, meth labs like out in the country, but I think they've been, law enforcement is pretty active on those, but there's no shortage of, like, every single day people come in out of their minds on methamphetamines,
Oh, wow.
and of course they have cardiac stuff from that as well. But
Yeah, of course they got arrhythmias.
I've never had a single anabolic steroid related emergency room visit in over 20 years, with one exception. One exception. So I had an elderly guy who got a really bad infection in his quad from from his testosterone injection, and that was it. He actually had necrotizing fasciitis, which that's the flesh eating bacteria that you hear about in the news, and that was from probably not the most sanitary intramuscular injection into his quad. That's the only time I've ever seen a PED related ER visit. But you wouldn't expect it, right? I mean, the problems with PEDs, better than anybody. It's going to be heart attacks and strokes, but it's going to be years down the road. Like a lot of times after your competitive career is over, that's when these bodybuilders are dying, and they're maybe in their 50s, late 40s, that kind of stuff. So it's like they're not maybe even actively on anything right now, but then they're running into, they end up on dialysis, or they have kidney failure, that sort of thing. So that's not, it's not a common thing in that part of my practice. Now, guys come to me in my men's health practice who have abused PEDs for sure. And I've got a small number of guys that I try to do damage control, and I monitor their health and try to keep them safe because they're not, they're not going to stop, and that's, it's their decision, obviously. But I help keep them a little bit safer maybe than they normally would be.
Yeah. That's the same what I did for many years with bodybuilding coaching.
Exactly
You're still going to take the steroids. They still want to compete, or they still want to look good for social media, for whatever vanity purposes. So you just got to make them do blood work like every month, every couple of months, and do some organ imaging to shove it under their nose. Like if you do this, your blood work is shit. And if you do this, your blood work is less shit.
Yeah.
But it still
makes it more real. It makes it more real to them, right? And sure, you see the piece of paper and the, look, oh, this is you on trend. This is not good.
Yeah.
Not good. So,
exactly.
So I do have some of those guys. Yeah.